Happy Meatball. Today we're going to be making cream of mushroom soup, or as I like to call it, cream of mud shroom soup. You'll see why. You will need the following ingredients: 5 cups of sliced mushrooms, 2½ cups of chicken broth, ½ cup of chopped onion, 1/8 teaspoon ground thyme, 3 tablespoons of butter, 3 tablespoons of flour, 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt, 1/4 of a teaspoon of pepper, 2½ cups of half and half or whole milk, and 1 tablespoon of sherry. In a large frying pan over a medium-high heat, you add your diced onions. After letting your onions soften for about a minute and a half, you will then add the 5 cups of sliced mushrooms. You add 1½ cups of chicken broth, reserving the other cup for later. After about 5 minutes, you want to go ahead and sprinkle in the ground thyme. After about 10 minutes, the mushrooms have shrunk in size, making stirring a lot easier. There is still, however, a little bit too much broth left. We want to reduce that down for about another 5-7 minutes. Letting the mushrooms simmer for about 10 to 15 minutes, allowing them to shrink down and absorb most of the chicken broth. Be sure to stir often. After about 15 minutes, you'll notice that the mushrooms have absorbed nearly all of the chicken broth. Using a ladle, scoop out some mushrooms and set aside for later. Now, if I had a food processor, this would be the time I would be using it. However, I don't. So I add the cooked mushrooms to my blender. What we want to do is we're going to grind them down into a puree, and this does work quite well in a pinch. After all of about a minute in my blender, I do have to stop and use a spoon to make sure that everything from the top does get to the bottom. Pureeing mushrooms, they are very thick, so you may have to do this. Again, a food processor would have been a lot easier. After about 3 minutes, it's well pureed and it has the consistency of, well, mud, hence the name mud shroom soup. It may not be pretty, but I promise you it will taste good. Leaving that covered and set aside for a moment, in a large saucepan over medium-high heat, we add our butter, melting that down, and then adding our flour using a small whisk to blend. We then add our salt and pepper, mixing it well, and then adding 1 cup of half and half or whole milk. Mix thoroughly. Bringing that up to a simmer, you then add the mushroom puree. Stir quickly and take it off the heat as it will pop and bubble. Add in your 1 tablespoon of sherry, then you add the final cup of either half and half or whole milk. Last, you add the final cup of chicken broth. Stir well. This is a very thick soup. When it starts to bubble like lava, it's done. Using the mushrooms that we saved from before, decorate the top of a bowlful and serve. I'm the Happy Meatball, and this was cream of mud shroom soup.